Hi class, welcome to topic 4 DQ2. In this DQ, we're going to work through paying off a credit card. So let's start the DQ by putting our name in the name cell. You're going to put it in the red cell here. After you enter your name, it should turn blue. And then your problem is going to appear up here in the top left. So for my problem, I am going to see how long it takes to pay off $2,200 for a credit card, and I'm going to be paying the minimum payment, which is a maximum of 3% of the current balance or $20. My credit card has an APR of 20%, so that's my annual percentage rate. That's going to be compounded monthly, and we're going to see how long it takes to pay off the loan. So first, I'm going to enter all my information into the green cells, and I'm going to make sure I follow all appropriate formatting, include dollar symbols, and include percent symbols on the values. After you've entered in the information for your problem, below that is where we're going to start entering in our formulas. So our formulas below, we have the current balance, the payment, the balance after payment, and the interest. The current balance is the balance on the credit card. The payment is going to be the maximum of 3% of the balance or $20. So that payment is going to start as the 3% of the balance, and then it will gradually decrease as our balance decreases, and then we'll see it flip to the $20, and it'll stay at the $20 until we pay off the loan. The balance after payment is the balance immediately after we make that payment, so we're going to subtract off the payment from the current balance, and then the interest is the interest for that month, and then we'll add the interest back into the current balance for the following year. All right, so let's start by bringing down our current balance. So I'm going to cell reference our starting balance for the very first current balance for the very first period. So I'm going to type my equal sign, I'm going to click on that starting balance, and I'm going to hit enter. So I'm starting out with $2,200. Now let's work through the payment formula. There's a couple different parts of this payment formula, so let me write off to the side what we're doing, and then we can put it all together in the formula. Okay, so for this payment, I need to take the maximum, so I'm going to use the max function. I need to take the maximum of 3% of the current balance, so it's going to be that 3% times the current balance, or the fixed minimum. The fixed minimum is our $20. So that $20 is going to be the other part in here that we're thinking of that as our fixed minimum. When I put this formula in, I want to make sure I lock the cell references to the 3% and to the $20 because those will stay the same throughout all of the formulas. The current balance, I want it to change as we move down the table, so we're going to keep that one unlocked so it can float. The current balance needs to update as we move down the table. Now, this max function, this is always going to give me the larger of the two amounts, and then it's going to get set at $20 once we get down to the end. So it'll take 3% times the current balance for that month, see what that amount is, determine if it's larger than $20, and it's going to take the higher amount out of those two. We need to, at the very end of this, we need to make sure that this flips to $0 once we are done paying off the loan. So we want to make sure at the very end the payment switches to match the current balance. And we can do this by adding a min function around the max function. So I'm going to add in a min function around here. Going to keep my max function, and then after that I want to also put in the current balance again. This is going to make it so that after we've gone through the fixed minimum and that balance is below $20, we want it to flip to the current balance so then we can just pay off the rest of it and then we'll reach $0. So as we go through this formula and do the autofill, I'll point it out again as we get down there so you can see where this formula is switching as we go. Okay, so the payment formula in the cell, we're going to do the equal sign. We need the min function, open parentheses, the max function, open parentheses, cell reference to your smaller percentage, the percent times the balance. For me, it's that 3%, so I'm going to cell reference my 3%, type my star for multiplication, and then I want to cell reference the current balance, and I want to make sure I use the current balance in the gold cell because we're going to autofill this. So I'm cell referencing that 2200 in that gold cell, and then I need a comma, and then I'm going to cell reference the fixed minimum. Mine's $20. Make sure you use the value from your problem. It should be sitting down here in that last green cell. So your minimum payment amount, so mine's 20, so I'm going to cell reference that 20, close the parentheses, type a comma, cell reference that current balance again, and again I want to make sure I cell reference the current balance in the gold cell not the starting balance up here in the table. So I want to make sure I reference at 2200. And then close the parentheses. Now, when we autofill this, we need to make sure we lock the cell references to the cells that are the green cells. The cells that are not going to change are the 3% and the $20. Those have to stay the same no matter where we are at in this loan, because it's always going to be 3% of the balance, and then it's always going to be that fixed minimum of $20. So we want to go ahead and include cell references to those values. We want to go ahead and lock the cell references to those values, but do not lock the cell reference to the current balance. So I'm going to put $signs into my cell references to my percentage of the current balance, my 3%, and then my fixed minimum, which is that $20. And then the cell reference that is cell referencing my current balance, my 2200, I'm leaving that without the $sign so it can update as we autofill down the table. Okay, this payment should start as the percentage of that current balance. So mine's 3%, so this is 3% of 2200, and that is how my payment is starting. Now the balance of payment is going to take the current balance and it's going to subtract off the payment. So what we're pretending is that we've made that payment in the account, so then we're taking the current balance and we're subtracting off the payment. So I'm going to type out the formula and then I will do an example in the gold cell. So we're following current balance minus payment. So we're going to start with our equal sign. We're going to click on the current balance, do a minus, click on the payment. We want these values to constantly update as we move down the table, so we do not need to lock these cell references and we do not need to include dollar symbols. All right, now the interest. The interest formula is following the simple interest formula. So we are taking the P times R times T. The principal amount is the balance after payment. The R is our annual percentage rate. And then we're going month by month. So our time is 1 month, or 1/12. So in my gold cell, I'm going to type my equal sign. I'm going to click on the balance after payment, type my star, and then I want the APR. So my APR was 20%. Use the APR you were given. And then we're taking that times 1 month, but simple interest, the time always has to be in years. So 1 month in terms of years is 1/12. So 1 divided by, and then cell reference that 12 for the number of years. Now in this formula, the APR and the 12, the number of periods, are going to stay the exact same in all of the formulas. So we want to lock the cell references to the APR and then lock the cell reference to the number of periods because they are the exact same. We will not lock the cell reference to the balance after payment because we want that to constantly update as we move down the table. All right, and then this wraps us back around to the next current balance. So the next current balance is the balance after payment plus interest. And we do not want to include dollar signs because we want those values to update as we move down the table. So now what we need to do is we need to autofill these formulas until we reach $0 for the current balance, or until you reach negative. If you reach negative, that means you've overpaid and you need to backtrack until you find that $0. All right, so we're going to autofill the payment, balance after payment, and interest, each one cell, so then we can get all of them met up along the same row, and then we can autofill all 4 at the same time. When we're autofilling, I recommend using the bottom right corner of the cell to autofill. So for the payment, I click on that $66, hover my cursor over the bottom right corner until my cursor changes, click, hold, drag, and then let go. I'm only going to do it 1 cell right now, so I can meet all of my cells in the same row, and then I'll autofill the row. All right, so do the same thing for the balance after payment. Click on the cell, hover your cursor over the bottom right corner until it changes, click, hold, drag, and then let go once you're done dragging. And then do the same thing with the interest. All right, now let's autofill all 4 of them together. So I'm going to highlight this row. I'm not going to autofill. I'm going to grab it from the middle of the cell, highlight it, and then I'm going to hover over the bottom right corner of that. So it's hovering over the bottom right corner of my interest value. I'm going to hover over the bottom right corner until my cursor changes. Mine changes from a white plus to a black plus. Once it changes, I'm going to click, hold, drag it down the table, Just keep dragging. You can drag it down to the end, or you can drag it until you reach $0. All right, so now let's work through the payment so you can see how it is actually paying off the loan. So our payment here, remember, for the payment is we were taking 3% times the current balance, or $20, whichever was greater, and then once we got below $20, we were just going to pay off the rest of it for that current balance. So here for my payment, you can see that it's starting as the percentage-based payment. It's starting as 3% times the current balance. It's gradually decreasing as you move down the table. The payments are just gradually decreasing. And then once I hit $20, it's going to stay fixed at $20 until my current balance is below $20. So here it's $20, and then my current balance is below $20. So then my payments updates to pay that off, and then my loan is done. So here is where my loan finishes. Here's where I've paid off the current balance. All right, so now we need to determine the number of years it took us to pay it off, the total amount paid, and the interest. This is back up to the top. Those are these three cells here. So we need to determine the number of years to pay it off in years. So we need to take the final period divided by the number of periods for each year. So type your equal sign, scroll back down that table until you find where you hit $0. So mine's here at period 134. So I'm going to click on the 134, type my slash for division, and then click on the 12 from the number of periods, and then hit enter. So it took me 11 1/6 years to pay off my loan, to pay off $2,200. That's how long it took me, paying only the minimum amount. All right, let's find the total amount paid. So my total amount paid, this is all of my payments added up together. So I'm going to use my equals, my sum function, so it'll add everything up. So equals SUM, open the parentheses, highlight that payment column. You can stop at the final payment, or you can just go down to the end of the table and include all those zeros. Either way works. Just get all of those payments you have included in that sum function, close the parenthesis, and hit enter. So out of my loan, I started with $2,200. I ended up paying $4,281.97 in total. So that includes the loan itself and all the interest on top of that. So now let's determine how much just in interest I paid. So let's take the total amount paid minus the starting balance, and this will give me just the interest. So in interest alone, I paid $2,081.97. All right, I hope this helps. Reach out to your instructor if you have any additional questions.